This is Ayman Tarabishi, Deputy Chair of the Department of Management at the George Washington University School of Business, and I'm also the ICSB Executive Director. I am delighted to see you all back here again with an ICSB Exchange webinar. And I'll talk a little bit about the webinar, and then I'll do an official presentation of all the panelists here. So the title of the webinar today, Humane Entrepreneurship, the elements that make a humane enterprise. This is a follow-up or part 2 of our webinar of last week when we talked about humane entrepreneurship versus social entrepreneurship. It has resulted in many questions and more curiosity about it. So we decided to continue this series as we delve into it. There's also more updates that came in the news this morning about organizations being considered more humane. So let's dig deeper into this topic and try to figure out what are the elements of a humane organization. But before we do this, I want to introduce the panelists for this session. The first one is Dr. Rosangela Feola. She has a Ph.D. in management and is also a research fellow of Lisa Lab, a research center whose main topic is on technology transfer and academic entrepreneurship at the University of Salerno, and also a technology transfer manager in the same university. So Dr. Rosangela, welcome to the ICSB Exchange webinar.
Thank you, Ayman. Good evening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second presenter is Dr. Massimiliano Vesci. Now he is an alumni of the ICSB Exchange webinar. This is his second webinar here. So he knows how the system works, and we're delighted to have him, but let me introduce him again. He has a PhD and is an associate professor in management at the University of Salerno in Italy as well. His research focuses on entrepreneurship, humane entrepreneurship. He published a couple of articles in JSPM on humane entrepreneurship and public management. Finally, also an alumni of the ICSB Exchange webinar, Dr. Antonio Botti. He is also an associate professor of management at the University of Salerno. He is also a member of several committees. In particular, he is an associate editor for the Journal for Small Business Management and the Journal of the International Council for Small Business. He also co-authored multiple papers on humane entrepreneurship. So Massimiliano and Antonio, welcome to the session.
Hi, Ayman. Thank you very much for your presentation, and a warm hello to all the people that are connected with us, and thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. So let's get to it. We have a lot to discuss here, but I'm really excited about this because last week, a lot of the questions were leading to this presentation here. So I want to give it to Rosangela to lead us in this session, and then for Massimiliano and Antonio to jump in. Rosangela, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Ayman. Thank you for the opportunity to share the vision and the concept of humane entrepreneurship, and thank you to all the participants in this webinar. So in this evening, the focus of the webinar is on the specific elements that make a firm as a humane enterprise. But before start with this focus, just few words about humane entrepreneurship. So humane entrepreneurship is a new model of entrepreneurship, a new concept of entrepreneurship that has been developed in the last year as a consequence of the debate about the role of entrepreneurial firms in the modern society. A modern society where the profit business is important, but where also the attention for people, the attention for the environment is very, very important. So starting from this idea, the basic concept behind the concept of humane entrepreneurship is that probably we need to rethink the concept of entrepreneurship. So in this perspective, the humane entrepreneurship concept is an enlarged model of entrepreneurship in which the traditional attention that firms pay to business, to profit, to competitiveness is integrated with the attention for the environment, for the nature, and for the society, and is integrated with the attention for the people involved in the firms, for the attention for the human resource involved in the firms. So the concept of humane entrepreneurship is the intersection of these three elements, the traditional attention to entrepreneurial orientation and these two new concepts that are the attention for people and the attention for the environment and for the society. So humane entrepreneurship is the ability to integrate, to bring together these three different elements. So if this is the definition of humane entrepreneurship, now the problem is, but what are the elements that make a firm as a humane firm, as humane enterprise? So what are the elements that we need in order to clarify if a firm is humane or is not humane? So in this perspective, the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation could be very, very useful. The concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation is based on the concept of entrepreneurial orientation, on the classical concept of entrepreneurial orientation that is a well-known concept in the context of entrepreneurship research. And in this the concept of entrepreneurial orientation defines the extent, the level to which a firm is oriented toward risk, toward proactiveness, and is innovative. So, starting from this definition, this concept of entrepreneurial orientation, humane entrepreneurial orientation is express the extent to which entrepreneurs and top managers are oriented toward business, toward competitiveness, but at the same time take care for the human talents involved in the firms and for the environment and for the society. In this perspective, the humane entrepreneurial orientation is an enlargement of the entrepreneurial orientation concept, is an enlargement of this traditional concept. And in enlarging this concept, the humane entrepreneurial orientation include in the definition of humane firms two further categories of stakeholders. Traditionally, the concept of entrepreneurial orientation refers to the shareholders. Entrepreneurial orientation expresses the attention for the profit, for the business, for the competitiveness of the firms. And in these terms, entrepreneurial orientation refers to shareholders of the firms. Humane entrepreneurial orientation enlarges this entrepreneurial construct and include two further classes of stakeholders that are human resource involved in the firms and the society at large. So speak about humane entrepreneurial orientation require the clarification of two key issues. The first one is about the conceptualization of humane entrepreneurial orientation. So what is a humane entrepreneurial orientation? How we can define humane entrepreneurial orientation? The second issue concerns the measurement of this theoretical construct. Answering to the question about the conceptualization of humane entrepreneurial orientation means substantially to try to find a definition for this theoretical construct. So define the nature of the dimension that humane entrepreneurial orientation include, define the level at which we can measure this theoretical construct, and then specify and qualify the single dimension, the single components of the theoretical construct. So the starting point to solve this issue is the theory of entrepreneurial orientation that I said before is a consolidated concept in the context of entrepreneurship research. There are different definitions, a lot of definition about the concept of entrepreneurial orientation, but the most used definition is the definition provided by Covin and Slevin in 1989, And in this definition, Covines-Levin define entrepreneurial orientation as a firm strategic posture, where the strategic posture refers to an overall competitive orientation of the firm. So, in this definition, we can highlight three keywords that, in our opinion, could be useful in the conceptualization of the humane entrepreneurial orientation. The first one is the keyword firm. When we speak about entrepreneurial orientation, we refer to a strategic posture of the firms, of the organization. Entrepreneurial orientation refers not to individual but to the organization, to the firm. The second keyword is about posture. Entrepreneurial orientation is defined in this definition as a strategic posture of the firms, where strategic posture is used as in a similar conceptualization to the concept of orientation. But if we analyze the meaning of these two terms, posture and orientation, they have a very different meaning. More specifically, the terms, the concept of posture, when we speak about posture, we refer to an attitude of the firm. So we refer to the concept of position, the way in which the position you have towards something. So the concept of posture refers to an attitude of the firm. But when we speak about the concept of orientation, the terms of orientation, these terms introduce in the definition of entrepreneurial orientation a dynamic dimension that refers to activity and action that firm performs, and action and activity incorporates a psychological dimension that refers to inclination or preference. So, in these three keywords, there are, in our opinion, the key to conceptualize the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation. So, from this definition, we can draw the main characteristic of the humane entrepreneurial orientation. Humane entrepreneurial orientation is a strategic posture that is at the same time behavioral and attitudinal. This strategic posture is both attitudinal and behavioral. The firm is the level at which the humane entrepreneurial orientation should be measured, and humane entrepreneurial orientation is an enlarged strategic posture that include the traditional entrepreneurial orientation, but add to this classical entrepreneurial orientation two further dimensions that are the sustainable orientation and the resource orientation. So this is our proposed definition of humane entrepreneurial orientation. Humane entrepreneurial orientation is an enlarged strategic posture of the firms, is a firm-level construct, and for this reason, entrepreneurs and top managers is the most adequate level at which this construct, theoretical construct, should be measured. And the three dimensions that compose this construct are entrepreneurial orientation, sustainable orientation, and the human resource orientation. More specifically, in the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation, entrepreneurial orientation is used in the most used definition, in the most known definition, and then entrepreneurial orientation is a firm strategic posture composed by the three dimension of innovativeness, risk-taking, and proactiveness. Sustainability orientation is defined in the context of humane entrepreneurial orientation, a firm-level strategic orientation that is expressed through the firm behavior in the taking care for the nature, for the environment, but also for the society. And human resource orientation is a strategic posture of the firms expressed through the behavior of entrepreneurs and top managers in taking care for the human resource, for the human talents that are involved in the field. So this is the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation, and this is the three dimensions that compose this theoretical construct. And as I said before, the definition and the conceptualization of humane entrepreneurial orientation is just one side of the coin. The second problem is about the measurement of this construct and the dimension of the human entrepreneurial orientation. So I give the floor to Massimiliano Vesci that can specify and better develop this specific aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosangela. I will try to share my screen.
Yes, okay.
Okay, and maybe this one. Okay. Okay. As Rosangela said, now we are facing with the issue of measuring human entrepreneurial orientation. And as Rosangela said, now we build the human orientation essentially on the entrepreneurial orientation theory.
I think your voice is a little bit scratchy. I think people are hearing it. Maybe kind of mute and unmute again. Maybe that will solve the problem.
Okay, I can try.
Perfect. Works now. We're good.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I said before, we are facing with the issue of measuring human entrepreneurial orientation, and as Rosangela said before, we build the human orientation on the entrepreneurial orientation, so we derive some characteristics from entrepreneurial orientation.
I think we're still having a problem here. People are noticing it here. Let me try this. Can you speak again now without? Can you just speak again now slowly? Let's see how it works. Go ahead.
I try to speak. Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Perfect. If you just go slower, I think it'll work well. Go ahead.
It's okay or not?
Now it's okay. I don't know why, but go ahead.
Okay, I try again.
Yeah.
We are facing with the issue of measuring entrepreneurial orientation. As Rosangela said, we are building our measurement scale, deriving some characteristic from entrepreneurial orientation theory, and as such, our measurement scales is derived a lot of characteristics from entrepreneurial orientation theory. At this time, we performed a review on the three principal components that are involved in human entrepreneurial orientation construct, that are entrepreneurial orientation, sustainability orientation, and human resource orientation. First of all, starting with our review on entrepreneurial orientation, we can observe that three different conceptualizations of entrepreneurial orientation can be found in literature. First, we have the original and the most developed configuration proposed by Miller and Covenant-Levin. In this conceptualization, entrepreneurial orientation is a construct that reflects the extent to which firms are innovative, proactive, and risk-taking. based on this conceptualization, a measurement unidimensional of the construct is derived that is computed with a composite construct that is the arithmetic average of the scores obtained on the 3 dimensions. The second conceptualization of entrepreneurial orientations is proposed by Lampikin and Dess that describe entrepreneurial orientation as an organizational level strategy making processes based on 5 dimensions, adding to the 3 original dimensions proposed by Covington-Levin the 2 dimensions of competitive aggressiveness and autonomy. In this case, a multidimensional conceptualization and measurement of entrepreneurial orientation is introduced. Finally, we have a third conceptualization, that is the conceptualization proposed very recently by Anderson et al., by which entrepreneurial orientation is a firm level construct composed of 2 dimensions, entrepreneurial behavior and general attitude. On such basis, we can, with literature, try to understand which are the measurement models proposed in literature to measure entrepreneurial orientation. And we found 2 different ways to approach this issue. We found reflective measurement scales and formative reflective scales. In particular, 4 scales are proposed in literature. In particular, we found the most used scale of Covington-Levin that proposed 3 separate first-order reflective scales, but we also found 1 first-order reflective scale proposed by Covington very late, and 5 separate first-order reflective scales proposed by Hughes and Morgan, and a reflective first-order and formative second-order. I just want to show you to understand the differences between these 4 scales in the next slide, but very quickly. First of all, we have the most used scale, that is the scale proposed by Covington-Levin, that is a scale by which we have the 3 different dimensions of innovative, proactive, and risk-taking measured as 3 separate first-order reflective scales. We have totally separate innovative with 3 items, proactive with 3 items, and risk-taking with 3 items. Then we have the second, another first-order reflective scale, that is the original proposition of the orientation measurement scale. But here, in 1983, we have just 9 items that altogether measure entrepreneurial orientation. Then we have the 5 separate first-order reflective scale proposed by Lampikin and Dess. We have 5 different dimensions: innovative, proactive, risk-taking, aggressiveness, and autonomy. Each of them measured by 3 items for a total of 15 items. But all these dimensions stand alone separately. And finally, we have a very complex measurement scale that is a reflective first order and a formative second order. We have 5 dimensions that are measured as reflective, and these 5 dimensions all together are formative of the second order measurement, entrepreneurial orientation measurement. Passing to the second dimensions of sustainability orientations, we noted that there isn't any agreement on the definition of sustainability orientation. In particular, sustainability orientations has been developed in the boundaries of the sustainable entrepreneurship domain, and as a consequence, some authors focus only on environmental issues, whilst others focus on environmental and social issues. In this case, sustainability orientation is very, very close to the social aspects that are normally analyzed in social entrepreneurship. Moreover, some studies proposed sustainable orientation as a firm-level concept, whilst other, in particular, in its very very impactful study, Cookers and Wagner, with sustainability orientation at individual level. Finally, it's not clear if sustainability orientation is a strategic posture, an attitude, a motivation to action, because all these categorization have been adopted by scholars in their study differently and alternatively. Passing through the sustainability orientation scales, it is obviously and very easy to understand that no agreement is on the scales that can measure sustainability orientation as a strategic posture. In particular, Roxas and Koetzer developed a set of items that capture the strategic orientation of small firms toward the adoption of sustainable natural environment management practices. And Cookers and Wagner operationalized their own idea of sustainability orientation by means of 6 items referring to environmental protection and social responsibility, but focusing essentially on the customer and not on the firm. As Antonio will say in the final part of this presentation, it is quite clear that we cannot find in the literature the right scale to measure sustainability orientation as it is interpreted and understood in human entrepreneurship. The third dimension is human resource orientation. Studies on this topic highlight the necessity to invest in human resource management in a strategic perspective, adopting a strategic decision-making approach. Most of these studies focus on the relationship between HRM and firm performance. That is not the focus on which we want to focus measuring human entrepreneurial orientation. And this prevalence of study is demonstrated by the measurement scales that we found in literature. In particular, the most important of them we found are the High Performance Work Practice Measurement Scale, composed of 13 items across 2 factors investigating actions or behaviors performed at the corporate level to implement work practices. But no strategic posture is in these scales. And similar, the scale proposed by Damon Rosett evaluates policies from employees' perspective, but we want to measure human entrepreneurial orientation and as a consequence of human resource orientation, adopting a strategic posture and adopting the point of view of managers or entrepreneurs. Kim, in 2018, very recently, Kim et al. Identified and defined 4 main HRM dimensions that qualify human resource orientation. And these dimensions are empathy, equity, enablement, and empowerment, and defined a set of items to measure HRO. I finished this set of slides, and I would like to invite Antonio to discuss this review and pass to the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimiliano. If you stop your presentation, I can share my screen.
Wait a minute. I'm not sharing, is it? I guess I'm not sharing.
Okay. you see my presentation? Do you see my presentation? Massimiliano? Ayman, do you see my presentation?
I see it, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes, Antonio, I can see.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, well, first of all, I want to give back to a critical aspect to define a measurement scale. In fact, referring to a measurement scale, as Massimiliano said before, the problem that we have to assess is the choice in order to a formative or a reflective measurement scale. Well, we have to pay attention to this choice because we use a reflective or formative measurement scale to measure a latent construct. But as we can find in literature, latent construct exists, and it exists independently of the measurement model adopted. So the choice of a measurement model is affected by how we define the construct that we have to measure. So it is possible to use as a reflective measurement model, as a formative measurement model, and in order to measure the EO, the entrepreneurial orientation, Massimiliano shows us there are used as a reflective measurement model, as formative measurement model. Why? The choice we have to assume a choice in order how we define the concept, the construct that we have to measure. The real matter is only the attention paid to this choice, and the reflective or formative measurement model is affected by the definition of the construct that we want to measure. Going back to the reflective and formative models, in few words, we can say that the formative measurement models employ explanatory combination of indicators as the basis for creating the latent construct. In other words, in formative measurement model, the latent construct is modeled as being produced by its measures. The causal relationship is from measure to construct. So we can use formative measurement model when we hypothesize that measure affect construct. By contrast, reflective measurement model assume that the latent construct is modeled as producing its measures. So in this case, the causal relationship is from the construct to the measures. This consideration give us the opportunity to say that we can use as a reflective measurement model, as formative measurement models. The only restriction is about how we define the construct. So in the papers, we can use both the measurement models. About the other problem of the measurement scale, the unidimensional or the multidimensional, and the level of the construct, I will discuss these two aspects in the slide that we will present after. About the EO, the HEO, the goal of our study is to define the construct, and we defined the construct as a broader domain built on EO. So EO is our roots and we start from EO and then we enlarge the EO, including in the EO the other two aspects that Rosangela presented before, the HER and the SO. Then, at the end, we consider HEO as a strategic posture that show both attitudinal and behavioral dimension. This construct is a firm level construct, so the measurement of this construct is at the firm level, not at individual level, but at the firm level. For the EO, we, as Massimiliano said before, we refer to the Covenants level scale that probably is the most used scale to measure EO. For SO and HRO, the choices are different. For SO, as Massimiliano said, the measurement scale commonly adopted need to be framed in the Hume and Main. It is necessary to adapt the measurement scale that other authors used before, because the scale are not defined in as a strategic posture, but in most cases referring to the sustainability measured, referring to the planet, to the waste. Referring to HRO, two types of studies we found in our review. One focused his attention on practice and the other on motivation. But both type of studies focus the attention on tools. They don't approach the problem on a strategic angle. So we need to assess HEO for a strategic posture, and then we need to adapt the measurement scale in this angle. So we need to adjunct to find other indicators that can measure the construct at the strategic level. In conclusion of our studies, we can say that in our understanding, HEO can become conceptualized as measured as unidimensional or as multidimensional construct. We don't choose one way. The two ways could be correct, could be both correct. At the same time, HEO can be hypothesized as a first order construct, as a higher order construct, second, third, or more. And the EO measurement scale demonstrated that the same EO is measured as a first level construct or our second level construct, as Massimiliano presented before. Coherent with its definition, we identify entrepreneur and top manager as a mindset, the most adequate level at which the construct should be measured. So, except for the case of EO, for which the scale proposed by Cohen-Slavin, we adopt the scale proposed by Cohen-Slavin, so the 3 dimension and the 9 indicators defined by Cohen-Slavin. For SO and HRO, we have to adapt the scale used by other scholars. Other open questions are, the first is, Humane Entrepreneurship Orientation is the sum of EO plus SO plus HRO. But as Covenant 11 said for EO, we need to define a threshold of the 3 dimensions. So human entrepreneurship firm, a firm is human when we can found all the 3 dimensions, EO, SO, and HRO. And we need to define, to assess a threshold. Over this threshold, the three constructs are present, and if this threshold is not reached, the construct is not does not work. The other open question is we define a human entrepreneurship orientation when the 3 dimensions are verified, but how we can define the firms in which we can find only 2 dimensions or only 1 dimension? The reality can offer us firms with percent EO plus SO, or SO plus HRO, or EO plus HRO, or other examples. And we need to define this type of firms. If we define the human entrepreneurship orientation as the sum of the 3 dimensions, but at the moment we have not a definition for those firms that present only 2 or only 1 of the 3 dimensions. So this is the next challenge. The first challenge is to assess a measurement scale, and the next challenge is to classify the firms that do not present the 3 dimensions and that present only 1 or a combination of 2 dimensions of the 3 that we identify. At the moment, our research is for stage 1. We generate a sample of items. We have to pass the stage 2 or the stage 3 to define to verify the measurement scales. But at the moment, the pandemic of COVID-19 stopped our data collection. But at the moment, there is a great opportunity offered us by JSBM with a special issue on human entrepreneurship. This special issue is at the moment open, and the guest editors are Professor Parente, Professor Kim, Professor Denoble, and Professor Olsby. So this is an opportunity that small business management offers us to discuss more in depth about human entrepreneurship. That for us is the challenge of the 21st century. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Antonio and Rosangela and Massimiliano. So what I'd like to do now is ask the attendees here to ask some questions, either in the question section or the Q&A. But let me start by asking Rosangela a question here. Based on the presentation and the research that you have done, and it's this very simple yes and no answer, and then you can explain in simple words, because you've done an exceptional job, all of you, going into the breakdown of what is a humane enterprise. Is there a difference between a firm that is humane versus a firm that is not humane? It's a yes or no.
So thanks, Ayman, for your question. So at the moment, it is very difficult to say how a firm is humane or not humane. At the step of our research, I can identify the 3 elements that need to be present at some extent in order to define a firm as a humane enterprise, as a human firm. So in the reality, probably in the reality, this is a continuum of firms that vary from humane entrepreneurial firms and not humane entrepreneurial firms. So we can observe different extension of this concept. But in our opinion, the qualification of a firm as a humane entrepreneurial firm need the presence of all the three elements that could be present at different level, probably, as also Antonio said before, and this is probably an issue that needs to be clarified. But the presence of humane entrepreneurial orientation, entrepreneurial orientation, human resource orientation, and sustainable orientation is the necessary condition to distinguish between humane entrepreneurial firm and non-humane entrepreneurial firm.
Okay, so if you're saying that there might be some elements to this that are present, so let me push you a little bit here and ask a little bit more difficult question here. Can you say, and you might say, I don't know, which is fair enough, but can you say, isn't this the same conversation that we're having with firms that are either social entrepreneurship firms or social firms versus non-social firms? The triple bottom line, people, profit, planet, and whatever the elements of a social enterprise, are we doing the same thing? Just at face value.
The concept of social entrepreneurship, I think, is near to the concept of humane entrepreneurship, but I think that is very different from humane entrepreneurship. So I'm not an expert about social entrepreneurship, but when we speak about social entrepreneurship, we refer to the kind of mission of the firms. And these firms is based on a social mission. But humane entrepreneurship is a wider concept, is a more comprehensive concept that probably includes also social mission, but requires the contemporary presence of other elements. And I think, in my opinion, the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation could be useful in distinguishing between social entrepreneurship and humane entrepreneurship firms. Because, as we say, the humane entrepreneurial orientation is an extension of the traditional concept of entrepreneurial orientation, a concept that adds to entrepreneurial orientation another two dimensions, sustainable and human resource orientation. So, starting from this idea, my question is how the concept of entrepreneurial orientation could be evaluated, is demonstrated in the case of social entrepreneurship. So probably the concept of human entrepreneurship could be useful in distinguish between social entrepreneurship and human entrepreneurship.
Ayman, can I?
Yep, Antonio, please jump in.
Yeah, I want to share my idea. I think that the difference between social and not social entrepreneurship is on the field of activities. Human entrepreneurship orientation, the particularly of human entrepreneurial orientation is that this concept, this construct is defined as a strategic posture. So the three elements, EO, SO, and HRO, should have defined and managed at the strategic level. So the entrepreneur or the top management should plan, should manage this element in a strategic way. The problem is not how they manage the human resource, for example. But the problem is if human resources are interconnected, are managed in a strategic way. So if they are part of the strategy of the firm. So I think this is the real difference between human entrepreneurship orientation and the social orientation.
Let me open it up for questions here. There were some questions coming here, but let me open it up for questions here. While I'm reading the questions for you here, what I'd like to know here is more importantly here, can there be a scale to measure such an organization? I know you talked about it here, but is there going to be a scale to measure such an organization?
As I demonstrated before, we have an important issue and we need to measure this type of organization. The problem is that we want to propose a scale. This is not very large because of the survey. It's very difficult to arrange a survey with a lot of items, but we want to measure all three dimensions that are that characterize human entrepreneurial orientation. In our understanding, in our opinion of our research group at Salerno University, we for sure start from the scales of human entrepreneurial orientation proposed by Covenant-Slavin with 9 items. Then we are now working on the other 2 dimensions of sustainability orientation and human resource orientation, and we are now working on items, and we are now in the phase of launching the survey. I guess that at the end of this step, more or less, it depends on the COVID, because it's very difficult to have survey with firms, enterprises in this period, but we cross fingers and we try to go ahead. I guess that we will have absolutely a measurement scale, and at the end, an index, one index to say if you are human or not.
This is good. So I want to bring it back to here today in the news and in the business roundtable here. A lot of the CEOs of major corporations have put this dialogue or have put this comment here saying it's not just about the stockholders, it's also about the stakeholders, right? And they're putting in equal the combination of that the organizations need to be more humane, if you may, or need to be part of society based on what we've seen with the pandemic here. What statement, and I'll refer to you, Massimena, what statement would you make if, let's say, they come back to you saying, how would you help us move forward with this concept? Because we're talking about it, they don't have a term for it, but we made a term for it as humane entrepreneurs. What statement would you tell those CEOs or executives?
Well, I think that human entrepreneurial orientation will be one of the most important issues with which we need to compete after, when the pandemic crisis will go to an end. Because we need a lot of humanity, and this pandemic crisis demonstrates that it is important to change the idea of the goal and the aim, the inner aim of an enterprise, not only for profit, but with a lot of humanity in this strategic dimension. And there are a lot of firms that during this pandemic crisis demonstrated their humanity. For instance, we read about Giorgio Armani, we read about a lot of firms with big dimensions and also small businesses that demonstrate their humanity. And in my understanding, and I guess that after this crisis, Humane Entrepreneurial Orientation will gain a lot of position in the ranking of the business models all over the world.
Very good. And this comes to Antonio here. And this is a comment coming here saying, this is very informative. However, I would like if the presenters have explored the concept of humane entrepreneurial orientation or human entrepreneurial orientation from the perspectives of firms in developing countries. So the issue becomes is this too Western thinking versus global? Do we see a difference here? What are your thoughts, Antonio, on this? And maybe back to Rosangela.
But at the moment, I have no idea if they could be different from the west of the east of the world. But referring to the question that you posed before to Maximiliano, I want to share a comment. I think that when in last August the CEO of the biggest company posed their attention on the need to rethink about the purpose of the firm, they in some way anticipate what we are living now, because the need to rethink the purpose of the firm imply that they were giving attention to other aspects, probably humanity of the firm, but other aspects that go beyond the profit. In this time, in this day, I observed a very strange phenomenon in Italy, in particular, in Italy and the public in the public sector. In Italy, we know that the productivity of the public employees are very low, but in this week, in this month, in the last 2 months, we observed a very high productivity of public employees, in particular medicians or employees in the healthcare sector. And I have a comment, I have a reflection. I think that this high productivity derived from proudness. They are proud to work in the healthcare sector, and I think that when we live in a non-normal period, as this is a non-normal period, other aspects affect the motivation, and probably when we live in period as a war or as a pandemic emergence, the proud of working in a place is a strong motivation factor. So if I should give if I should synthesize in a word, at this moment, proudness is the word that I can use to synthesize this situation.
Ayman, can I jump in this?
Yes, absolutely, and I will give it to Rosangela to end the session for us. Go ahead.
Ayman?
Go ahead.
I want just to share my experience to answer the question you did about the exploration of human entrepreneurial orientation from the perspective of firms in developing countries. You know, I went sometimes in Egypt, and I see with my eyes that there is a lot of humanity in the young people that are in Egypt. And this is great hope, because I guess that Humane Entrepreneurial Orientation probably will be a good option, especially from the perspective of firms in developing countries. That's my experience, my personal experience.
Thank you very much. Very well said. Rosangela, what about you? We're about 1 minute in. What about you? What is your final comments on all of this, and how would you bring it back all together?
Sorry, Ayman, I don't hear your question. I have some problem with the audio. Sorry.
My question is, what's your final thoughts on this topic?
Oh, okay. My final fact is that I think that human entrepreneurship is a very comprehensive model that could be explored in different contexts. So the suggestion to explore in the concept in developing countries could be very interesting because also in our initial model of human entrepreneurship, we said that human entrepreneurship is influenced by external conditions. So we can observe some differences in different contexts. So human entrepreneurship is a concept that can be explored from different perspectives, in different contexts, and so the invitation is to explore and to expand this concept.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of the panelists here. This has been an exceptional webinar. I know we got into the details of what is a humane entrepreneurship, but that's what's needed. We need to understand the metrics to start to evaluate and to build on it here. And you have done an exceptional job with this. Humane entrepreneurship is a new topic, but the more new it is, the more it seems like it's not new. We're just identifying what the world maybe needs to move forward here. In the past, and this is my personal opinion, we were fascinated with the concept of an organization that has a social mission or social cause or social innovation. And we even called them social enterprises, just to show how rare and dynamic they are. But what we're seeing here more and more, that the aspect of social is really more than what we call humanity. It's really more what we need more of in today's world. Humane entrepreneurship is a way of saying or raising the flags and saying we need more firms to understand that the world needs them more than they need themselves, right? And that's the magic here, is to understand that every organization in the world needs to have a fulfillment and need to help save humanity. And maybe that's the path. Maybe this research and the work we're doing confirms what everybody should know. But maybe this is an academic exercise for us to all do just to bring this topic to the forefront. I want to personally thank Rosangela and Massimiliano and Antonio for their time and for all the session attendees here. We will continue this discussion here. There's a lot of interest in this, and we'll continue doing this. I want to thank you again, wish you the best. Hopefully soon you'll go out and have your pizza and gelato, right? And we hope to see you soon in Italy. Have a wonderful evening. And for all the attendees, I want to thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you soon again. Take care, everybody.
Ciao,
Thank you, Ayman. Thank you to everyone.
Everybody to join our session. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ayman.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.